Gentleman with us here on set with us today, and it's Professor Sean Worthy from Metro State University, or with the Human Services Department. So we know school is now letting out for so many districts. They had held their kids until they knew what the situation was at this Douglas County school. So let's talk about what that communication should be like with children right now, as parents are, I'm sure, hugging them a lot tighter tonight.
Yeah, I think we all need to communicate with each other, right? I mean, it's not just children who are affected by this. I think our whole city is likely to be traumatized by having another one of these semi-random acts of violence. I think it makes everybody fearful and it makes everybody anxious.
Well, you know, I don't know. I have a 4-year-old, and when that last scare happened around the Columbine anniversary, you're thinking, you know what, that's a conversation for another day. That's when she's older. That's not the case anymore. And for the love of God, what do you say to a little kid, both when there is, you know, just to be safe and be alerted that this could happen, but when it actually does happen, how can you let them in on the horrors of the world?
Well, I think you don't let them in on the horrors of the world. I think you reassure them about their safety and the people who are around them to keep them safe. So, for example, their teachers, their security personnel at their school, their principal. I mean, that's what you want to key in on. You want to key in on all the things that help them feel safe, because clearly for most young people, they will be feeling some insecurity and some anxiety about this most recent attack.
Yet you, I'm sure, have to have a different conversation when we're talking high schoolers. In Mr. Montoya's case, his son is a 17-year-old. How should that conversation go with a high schooler, for example?
Well, again, all of it depends on the developmental age of the young person. High schoolers clearly know a lot more, and so you can be far more honest and have a discussion also about keeping themselves safe. And for them, you know, the typical idea is fight, run, hide, you know, and explaining that to them and giving them tools to use if they're ever in a situation like this. Also to just talk about their anxiety and about the craziness of our culture in a world where this happens on a regular basis.
Yeah, and while we're talking with psychologist Sean Worthy, we are waiting for another media briefing from Douglas County Sheriff. In fact, I think it's going to be Sheriff Spurlock himself.
That's right.
And that should be anytime in the next 10-15 minutes, so please do stay with us. I'm assuming, because last time we had an official briefing, they said they thought they had the 2 shooters in custody. It looks like that's going to be the case, so please do stick around for that.
But let's talk a little bit more then about conversations, because no matter if you don't live in Highlands Ranch, this has this ripple effect of just hurting all of us to the core. So what do we do with that? What do we do with that hurt right now?
Well, I think we have to talk about it. I mean, that's one of the things that is always helpful, to decompress, decompartmentalize all this stuff that's going on. So you need to talk with your family, you need to talk with your kids, have the discussion, not necessarily with the young kids. It's a different discussion, right? I mean, so if your kid is 4 or 5, 6 years old, that's not the discussion you want to have. You want to have the discussion about how they stay safe, because their world is small, and that's really what they're considering most of the time. But for the older kids, you want to have a discussion about what's going on, how they're feeling about it, because each child may react differently. And so you have to get a sense of, you know, what their experience of it is. It was really interesting on my way here. I was talking to my daughter, who's 22 years old, and I was telling her about, you know, what was going on. And she said, "Dad, that's not unusual." And she reminded me that she's grown up in a world where that's all she's known since Columbine, right? And so it's a whole different perspective, right, for them.
And first of all, how can you have a 22-year-old? Dr. Worthy, if you can, I'm going to push pause.